Hello, everyone. Don't look like I'm going to get any sleep today. Forget last night. Forget the day before. Very little the night before. Um, I've got a article that was referred to me by one of the users, and I want to give a big shout out to him, Larnum. He's one of my subscribers and friends. I sometimes wish that I didn't wasn't able to connect things together the way I can. Now, Huffington Post, to me, is still a pretty good, reputable source of information. But in this article I'm going to read from, they don't quote who the experts are that they're talking with and who's giving them this data. And I sure wouldn't trust British Petroleum's experts or any of their workers, let alone any of our government now. So, big heads up for Larnum. Thank you. I'm sorry that we even are having to see this situation. I see this as a double blow. Economic crisis. Wham. It's already bad. It's going to get worse for the Gulf states. The experts are saying, yes, it can come up the Atlantic Eastern seaboard. Bam. Another knockout, massive knockout of our fish stock and breeding grounds. Forget economic chaos. It'll turn into crazy, just plain crazy. Um, Let me give you some of this data, and I'll post the link in the About information. All right, here goes. Venice, Louisiana. A sense of doom settled over the American coastline from Louisiana to Florida on Saturday as a massive oil slick spewing from a ruptured well kept growing, and experts warned that an uncontrolled gusher could create a nightmare scenario if the Gulf Stream carries it towards the Atlantic. President Barack Obama planned to visit the region Sunday to assess the situation and amid growing criticism that the government and oil company BP plc should have done more to stave off the disaster. Meanwhile, efforts to stem the flow and remove oil from the surface by skimming it, burning it, or spiking it with chemicals to disperse it continued with little success. Why even go there about what they should have done? We already know they didn't and should have. It's like closing the door after the cows are gone. Focus on not what was done wrong. Let's focus on dealing with this issue. What about these oil microorganisms that they came up with, and they got the first patent on a living life form? These supposedly work. Why not use them? Or, hey, we've got submarines, we've got surface craft. Why don't we just launch a damn big torpedo or something down there and close the well up with explosives like we did in Iraq? There's ways that can be contained this. Yes, I'm not saying use a nuke. No, I'm not saying that. This can be shut. I don't know the underlying geological structure of that region. I do know at that depth you're going to have uh, hard crust pretty soon underneath any sediment. All right. These people, we've been beaten down. Disaster after disaster, said Matt O'Brien of Venice, whose fledgling wholesale shrimp docks business is under threat from the spill. They've all got a long stare in their eye. He said they'd come asking me what I think's going to happen. I ain't got no answers for them. I ain't got no answers for my investors. I ain't got no answers. We used to call that the 1,000-yard stare. He wasn't alone. As the spill surged toward disastrous proportions, critical questions lingered. Who created the conditions that caused the gusher? Did BP and the government react robustly enough in its early days? And most importantly, how can it be stopped before the damage gets worse? Yada, yada, yada. The Coast Guard conceded Saturday that it's nearly impossible to know how much oil has gushed since the April 20th rig explosion, after saying earlier it was at least 1.6 million gallons, equivalent to about 2.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Yeah, right. The blast killed 11 workers and threatened beaches, fragile marshes, and marine mammals, along with fishing grounds that are among the world's most productive. Even at that rate, the spill should eclipse the 1989 Exxon Valdez incident as the worst U.S. oil disaster in history in a matter of weeks. But a growing number of experts warn that the situation may already be much worse. The oil slick over the water's surface appeared to triple in size over the past 2 days, which could indicate an increase in the rate that oil is spewing from the well, according to one analysis of images collected from satellites and reviewed by the University of Miami. While it's hard to judge the volume of oil by satellite because of depth, it does show an indication of change in growth, experts said. The spill and the spreading is getting so much faster and expanding much quicker than they estimated, says Hans Graber, executive director of the University Center for Southeastern Tropical Advanced Remote Sensing. Clearly, in the last couple of days, there was a big change in the size. Yeah, liquid under pressure is a corrosive. Look at the rocks in the deserts, they're worn down from rain. Same thing happens with pipe. Same thing happens with your fuel injectors in your cars. That's why you need to change them after time. Liquid is corrosive. It doesn't matter what kind it is. Doug Suttles, BP's chief operating officer for exploration and production, said it was impossible to know just how much oil was gushing from the well, but said the company and federal officials were preparing for the worst case scenario. An exploration plan and environmental impact analysis filed with the federal government in February 2009, BP said it had the capability to handle a worst case scenario at the Deepwater Horizon site, which the document described as a leak of 162,000 barrels per day from an uncontrolled blowout, 6.8 million gallons each day. Oil industry experts and officials are reluctant to describe what exactly a worst-case scenario would look like. But if the oil gets into the Gulf Stream and carries it to the beaches of Florida, it stands to be an environmental and economic disaster of epic proportions. Does this sound kind of funny? All of this stuff keeps happening so rapidly that we can't even stay on top of it and analyze what's really happening? No, it's crisis after crisis after crisis. Too much circumstantial evidence points in one direction. Manufactured crisis after crisis. Somebody's playing dirty pool and trying to bring us to our knees. Oil industry experts and officials are reluctant to describe what exactly... Oh, no, I already read that. I'm going to have to come back, look at my time. Probably do a part 2 on this, people. Sorry about my agitated state. I want to apologize for that. But living close to the ocean a lot of my life and knowing a lot of people that make their living from the ocean, this is a personal touch to this as well for me. Like I said, the people here in Maine have been hit time after time with new federal regulations on limiting their fishing time that they can spend out, irregardless of how much they catch. It's hours out, not catch. Yeah, it's been insane, and it has really gotten insane, more so now. Please forbear with me. I'll try to keep it kind of even keel here. All right, I'm going on to part 2. I got to close this one out.